Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live one too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I'm leaving.
I don't think he felt anything after the crash.
Hello and welcome back. We are breaking up with RBS. This is episode number 33, and I'm Tani Sanabria.
And I am JDK Winnikin. We are here to debunk the junk, of which there's always plenty, as we always say.
Mm-hmm.
Part of being human.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning to really not that love the junk. I'm learning to love the junk, although I don't try to keep it with me.
Right.
I just kind of appreciate the reminder.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I think I appreciate recognizing that there is junk
Yeah.
to get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels good when you get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Even if it's for a moment and it comes back the next moment. Because, I mean, that's what happens too.
It's
Like,
what
right. We want to be real here.
Right. Well, welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you, Tony.
Yes.
Good to be here. Thanks to everybody. If you're listening live, thank you for doing so. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, thank you so much for subscribing, leaving comments. We really do appreciate it. And if you are watching on our YouTube channel at Breaking Up with RBS, same thing. Thank you so much for watching, attending, if you will. Maybe it feels like you're attending, for subscribing, all those types of things. Anyway, so what else? What are we going to break up with this week?
Right. What are we going to break? I came totally unprepared.
Totally? Was that on
unprepared.
purpose or just how it worked out?
Kind of. I kind of was just like, you know what? Let's wing this thing.
You know what? But winging it is interesting because
Mhm.
as we talk about connection all the time on here, right?
Mhm.
And one of the great things about connecting with somebody is you don't really have to wing it. You connect and something comes up.
Absolutely.
So
Right.
all right,
Yeah.
I can go this route. So we
Okay.
don't have to over prep. So all right. So let's see. What do we want to talk about?
What do we want to talk about?
You know what
Mm.
comes up for me when I just at that thought
Mhm.
was, and you just mentioned it a minute ago, like being appreciative of these things. And sometimes they go away just for a minute and then they come back
Mhm.
and makes me wonder. And we've had questions asked of us before of, what does
Mhm.
this look like for, are there common things that, for people as they adopt this practice and continue this practice? Certainly the
Mhm.
results come. And you and I spent a lot of time talking about
Mhm.
commonalities, right? This is the kind of thing you get present. Things that seemed really stressful before, really important before might change.
Mhm.
But it does look, everybody's different. Right?
Everybody's different.
So
yeah.
so while the practice has some commonalities, getting in, softening, getting into the body
Mhm.
and paying attention to that,
Mhm.
because we're all different on some level, what comes out and how this manifests and how this shows in our lives is going to be a little different, isn't it?
So are you talking about outcomes of this?
Maybe outcomes, but maybe I suppose outcomes are just what gets focused on or
Mhm.
what people end up appreciating or learn. Obviously it doesn't all go in the same order. People
Yeah.
don't learn the same lessons.
Mhm.
You and I have very different life contexts, for example. So,
Yes.
we're going to learn things in different ways or experience some of these
Mhm.
common experiences in different ways with different people.
Yes.
I don't know. You came in unprepared. I'm doing the best I can here.
No,
You wanna
you're
help me
doing
out?
great. Like,
Oh, good.
no judgment. No judgment at all, right?
Well,
Just
good.
getting clarification
Yeah,
because that's
sure.
what we do here, right?
Sure, right.
Absolutely. So yes, getting into your body for you
Mhm,
is you connecting with your body
mhm,
and accessing natural wisdom and information for you.
mhm.
Getting into my body, connecting with me, accessing wisdom, my wisdom in my body is different things will come up,
Sure.
right? And sometimes especially in a group practice, like similar things can come up,
Mm,
right? But we want to make sure that the practice isn't sort of viewed as, and we can have the practice, but just getting into our body
right.
isn't viewed as, okay, now I have to look for an outcome.
Correct.
So this
Oh,
is
that's a
going
good
to
point.
provide this for me,
Yeah, that's a
right?
good point.
Because then we're deciding from a headspace for our body about
Mhm.
what's in there, and our body better follow,
Right.
right?
So
Right? We don't want that.
how do I get present now to what do I do with it? We've talked about
Mhm.
that before.
Yes, right. So we don't need to think about getting present. We don't need to think about being present. We don't- because it will preclude us from being present.
think you said to me one time, JD, don't make getting present a problem. You have to do it a certain way. I went, oh,
Right. Like
Yeah.
there has to be a certain way to do it.
mhm,
Right.
mhm.
So that's the first part. Except for softening and connecting with ourselves, right? Like whatever emerges emerges.
Mhm.
And it can be pleasant and it can be unpleasant. It can be uncomfortable, it can be neutral, it can be comfortable, it can be amazing one moment, it can be not so amazing a next moment.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a picture into reality.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and sometimes that reality is you can't connect as well. Like, it could be for a number of reasons. It could be some
Yeah.
combination of emotions or circumstances or, you know.
Or just maybe there is a thought process going on in your head in that particular moment that
Mhm,
really seems to be consuming. You're really having some trouble moving underneath and away from it for that
mhm,
particular moment.
mhm.
And then that moment might be a little more, I guess we could use the word challenging, to get in and connect with our body because that thinking space is really going on
Yeah.
strong.
Yeah, I've experienced that before, and you and I have talked about several cases where, like, I it took me a while to realize there was a story going on, whereas I'd recognized that same story before a lot faster, but this time it kinda snuck up on me in a different way or showed up looked a little different than the last time or
Mhm,
whatever, and
mhm.
yeah, and I guess that's what it's best to call it a practice and not a profession, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessarily something that over time, I think it gets easier to engage in, but it is a different snapshot almost every time,
Mhm,
at
mhm,
least for me when I do it,
mhm.
and we talked last week about how sometimes that can be by comparison to the stimulation
Yeah.
that we get from other sources, it can seem boring by comparison. I've reframed that, I think, as peaceful, and I
Mhm,
enjoy that peaceful. I feel some refuge
mhm,
in that and a lot of appreciation, like, "Oh, okay.
mhm.
I'm okay right here. There's a story there, or maybe there's a story, and maybe I can't see what's happening, but at least right now I'm okay in this spot." And that usually kind of ends up, without me thinking about it, unsticking me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, yeah, for the moment,
For the moment, right.
right? I think that's the other part too. I was talking to somebody a couple days ago and they just wanted to beat themselves up over and over and over again because they knew this information.
Oh,
They knew that this story that they were telling themselves about this particular thing was problematic and they didn't need the story anymore and it wasn't helpful and all the things, right? They knew this, right? And then they would find themselves in the middle of their day, doing something entertaining this story. They're just like, "Oh, why am I keeping
uh-huh.
doing this?" Right?
Oh, man, I can relate to that.
And so that's part of the thing, like the knowing in our head that we have this story. And in a particular moment, we've noticed the story. We've gotten underneath or away from the story for a bit. We've gotten some perspective. We've, re-centered ourselves. We've made a different decision than we would have before if we would have just been automatically, lost in the story.
Mhm.
And so then we think, "Well, I did that once." Right? Like,
Why
this is
can't I
gonna
do
be
it
I'm
again?
gonna do it over and over and over and over
Right,
again,
right.
right? And it's gonna be easy, and if I'm not doing it over and over and over again, well, what's wrong with me?
There's something wrong. Mhm.
Yeah,
There's a problem.
yeah, yep. So, we're doing a lot of efforting and a lot of pushing and a lot of that tension that we've talked about is created in the body, and we're
Mhm.
actually stressing ourselves out over this process of being present, and we don't wanna do that.
Right. Right, yeah, and that's that's what makes it so, so funky, particularly when you're
Yeah,
just getting into it,
I know.
is learning. But even when you've been doing it, I'm sure you still experience that. You've been doing this for years.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, there are some days where the practice or just connecting with myself, it just feels easy. I feel relaxed. I feel calm. I can, sit for a longer period of time.
Mhm.
Um, and then there are other days when maybe I've got, some things on the schedule that I don't feel, ready for, or maybe I've got, something that I haven't, like, problem solved yet that I feel like needs to be problem solved, right?
Mhm.
And then the practice tends to be a little shorter that day. Um, and 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 it is, it's just shorter.
And it's so to me, the adjustment of having to, over time, learning to be in that moment and not make the assignment of, hey, I was much better at this yesterday,
Right.
or will I be better at this tomorrow, or how do that's still a work in progress.
That evaluation, right? The
Mhm.
evaluation, remember, is a thinking process,
Right,
right?
right.
So we don't need to do any of that thinking about this process. It's just like moments.
Hmm.
Like, okay, let me take 30 seconds here.
Right.
Let me take 3 hours here if I have it, and I'm in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, over time, even if you're just getting 30 seconds at a time,
Mhm.
it's 30 seconds more space than I used to give myself.
Yeah.
And that's always encouraging.
Mhm.
Even I'm learning to let go of the, hey, why is this harder today?
Yes. Yes.
For me, oftentimes what does that is when something unexpected
Mhm.
happens. Like I get an unexpected new thing I have to do, or, a surprise piece of news or an adjustment with work or something like that. Depending on how that lands on me in the moment, that can throw me, like, because I like to plan, believe it or
Yeah.
not. Believe it or not. I think a lot of people would find that
Do
funny to hear from me, but
I don't think so.
you think so?
I think
Do I come
you
across as a planner to you?
certain things I think you probably like to plan, and
Mm,
other things not so much.
it's probably true.
Yeah. When in those moments though of like, oh, overwhelm, like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. Oh, do you recenter and go right to like, oh, presence here
I'm
now?
getting better at that. It is, I would say, well, I couldn't even put a percentage on it. But when those happen, I'm aware more often, more and more quickly,
Mhm.
that getting present would help me. Getting present would help, you know, and observing, right? Sometimes even just that observing. Oh, okay, whoa, there's those emotions
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
came up. Oh, wow, I'm irritated by that,
Mhm.
or I'm frustrated by that. Oh, wow, my body energy just
Mhm.
went up. The point between something like that happening and my own self-recognition, I guess, of the emotional state I'm in or the response of my body, it's happening more often that
Mhm.
I actually do that. Sometimes it's really quick. Other times it's not until, just depends.
Yeah.
Just depends.
'Cause I was thinking when you said that, that's a great, like, signal.
Mm,
Okay, I overwhelm or something just went differently than I thought. 30 seconds, let me pause here,
mm.
right?
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
That's
Yeah.
a great opportunity because we don't have to do more than 30 seconds. It's sort of just okay, just give me allows me a little bit of space,
Mhm,
reconnect, get away from the headspace of, "Oh gosh, now I gotta
mhm,
take care of this. Now I gotta
mhm,
take care of that,"
mhm.
and then proceed from there.
And it's also not getting into the headspace of, "I need to fix this,"
Mhm.
or a story like, "It'll be okay," or "You're overreacting." It's not that either. It's really just literally just getting into the body, softening, breathing, and letting that sit. And this is the part where words fail after a while. It's like that there's just something that comes unstuck in
Mhm.
there, and I can't quite fully describe it. So,
Mhm.
I guess that's what I'm wondering in terms of, like, certainly we can talk about individual experiences, and there's hopefully the commonality is more ease, less stress in the body,
Mhm.
a better sense, better outlooks, I guess, or whatever it might be. Um, but the one thing we do hang our hat on, it seems like, tell me if I'm wrong on this show and in this practice is that no matter what your personality type, no matter how you deal with life, no matter what you're confronting, this practice can help.
For anyone who has a nervous system. I
For
just
those
wanna
of you
get
who
more
do not have a
clarity.
nervous system, you are out of luck.
Yes. We can't speak to that.
We can't help you. You're done if you don't have a nervous system. Okay.
I just wanted clarity, right?
So, yes.
Because we have nervous system
Mhm.
that has the stress response as part of
Right.
the
And we all
system.
have different coping things. Like, there are the personality types who respond to stress by wanting to control, get really active.
Mhm.
The ones who shut down and get really inactive.
Mhm.
We tend to think all these things are so different, but they're all responding to similar
Right.
similar interactions between the nervous system and whatever is coming externally or internally.
Mhm. And that's the part of why we spend so much time on the stories,
Mhm.
right? Because there is the practice of softening and getting into our body and taking a break from the stories.
Mhm.
Because the stories generate often our stress levels,
Right, that's the key.
right? That's the part. So
Mhm.
if I feel compelled to have a long list of things that I need to do in a day, and I feel compelled to mark those off so that later in the day, I feel productive because I've decided or have a story about being productive equals being a good person,
Mm.
being successful, making the most out of the day, whatever my story is around that,
Mhm.
then I have to rely on this long list. I have to be able to check them all off
Yeah.
and so that I can feel good later. That could I mean, luckily, that doesn't happen for me but that would stress me out.
Ugh, I'm stressed just thinking about it.
Yeah, right? So, that's how our stories then become of who we are and who other people are and how we're supposed to find happiness or success or
Mhm.
whatever it is that, means something to us, and that's where it's gonna be all different.
Yeah.
That's where the stress response gets kicked up.
Right. Yeah, and then the stories might be different, but they could be going in the same general direction. I'm
Mhm.
thinking of, that whole thing, the idea of making lists, that type of thing, just not that way. I'm not that way. I sometimes think I should be. You know, I'm sure there's some people who know me are
'Cause
like,
you have
"Yeah,
a
you should be,"
story you
because
have a
that is a
story that
story.
lists is gonna be
But I
helpful.
wonder about just the person who has maybe the same those same stories, but has a completely different response to all those things. Has the same amount of things, quote unquote, to do,
Mhm.
feels the same type of pressure to be productive, in order to feel good, but can't make the moves to get there, right?
Mhm.
Get stuck and freeze,
Yeah.
right? Completely same type of stories, completely different reaction, right? And different stress responses, guess I should
Yeah,
say.
still in a stress response,
Yeah.
but instead of going 3 miles a minute, I mean, like 3,000 miles a minute or something,
Mhm.
instead of really being fast paced with everything, they might freeze and get
So called
overwhelmed with all of it.
distract.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, I know that that's been more of my tendency rather than to get overactive and do and feel good. My tendency in the past has been to avoid, distract, you
yeah,
know, but boy, it's awful, right? And both sound awful. The idea of trying to make myself super busy, right?
mhm,
And that's the interesting thing because there's all these different, I mean, no matter what direction you're coming at,
mhm,
right? And it can even be for people who I've noticed people who can be really healthy and really active, right? And have really active lives can have that same stress response. And then people who aren't active in their lives, don't get exercise, don't eat well. It,
mhm.
stress responses are still there.
Yes, and then we go back to the story. So, is there something about the story of, "I need to get all of these things done in order to be successful, have people like me, feel good about myself, feel like I'm a good person." Like, do is that story of being productive actually what creates right? So that we even wanna look at that story.
As a story.
Yeah,
Hmm. Because we think it's real.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the fundamental thing we're getting at here is that the story, that's the BS
Yes.
because you don't have to be productive to have value.
Mhm.
Value's inherent.
You don't have to be productive to have a good day,
Hmm.
and especially depending on what you deem to be productive,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So we even look at what does it mean to be productive,
Hmm.
right? So then even underneath that, we have to know our values.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
What is it about being productive that is of value
Hmm.
for the folks who are run by their daily, right, that they need to be productive to have a good day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I keep thinking back to, boy, values, that's a powerful word. Thinking back to various episodes we've talked with people about, the story that like the father must provide.
Yeah.
When we had Troy on,
Troy on, yep.
the father must provide that story. That's their job.
Mhm.
And I can see how that would, if that's a value that is driving the father must provide, then if you, all the lists, of things to get done and certain things that have to happen and certain things that better not happen, because all those things together, you have to make sure you provide.
Mhm.
It's a lot of stress.
Mhm. And even, what does provide even mean,
Mhm.
right? So then we're looking at that value of
Right.
provide,
Do we mean monetarily? Do we mean emotionally?
Yeah.
Yeah,
mean all of it.
all of it. Mhm.
So that's the part of when we start to discern what we value, and we can start to kind of uncover those by noticing the stories.
Mm.
Like, what does drive me here? Okay, what is my value around this? Is do I even have a value around this, or is this just something I was told that I had to do for people to like me?
Yeah. Or is it a value I actually believe in, or is it one that I was taught
Yeah.
growing up that I don't really believe in? Oh man.
Right. So when we start to uncover those, we start to identify the values that fit for us. Then we can utilize those values in moments of stress to help us connect with ourselves and then proceed in a way
Mm.
that is going to keep us aligned with our own integrity.
Even if that looks different from somebody else's.
Yeah, even if it does.
Oh, there you go. So we're talking about individual differences.
Yeah.
Values could be a big part of it.
Yes.
Of the
Is
difference. Of the
a
yeah.
very big part of it.
Right, because somebody's value in one spot may look different than somebody else's.
Mhm,
Wow. Okay.
mhm.
Hmm.
So what's coming up for you?
Well, I guess, a number of things. Probably not enough to cover in the rest of the time that we have here. We only have a few more minutes left. But this idea of understanding values, and I keep coming back to the practice, and what are the lessons that I've learned over the last few years of doing this? And I know I've experienced what we just talked about, realizing that I have values that don't match some of the ones that I grew up with, or that I was taught were the right ones, or and I'm okay with that in some cases, and still working through it with others. But recognizing that for me, softening and getting into the body, those values just sort of, I guess, emerge, or the difference between what is actually mine and what somebody else's. Maybe not exactly in that moment. It's not like a presto, I opened a magic box and suddenly I have the answer. But it opens up the ability for me to have the internal process kind of operate, and then let that realization come out.
Mhm.
I guess I didn't really frame it as values as much. So that's what I'm chewing on.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe there's another word that fits.
Values is fine.
Yeah. I think that there's just so many different values that the human population, we all sort of
Man, yeah.
identify with.
It's a loaded
right?
word too.
Yeah. And so maybe we can talk a little bit more about that next week.
I think so. I think that would be good. It's funny. We found plenty to talk about, didn't we?
We always do.
Found plenty to talk about. I say, yeah, I'd like to chew on that a lot more and see where we go with that values discussion. It feels really important
Mhm.
to me. There's kind of a realization, not even a realization, just kind of
Yeah.
an awareness there. All right.
Awesome.
Well, then we invite all of you to join us again next week on Breaking Up with Our BS for that episode, for more talks about values and where that fits in the practice and breaking up with all those BS stories. Thanks so much for listening in or watching wherever you may be. Please look up our Facebook group and join it at same Breaking Up with Our BS.
Mhm.
And we have a couple of fun things to announce coming up pretty soon.
We do.
So stay tuned for that. But join us next week. In the meantime, I am JDK Winnikin.
And I am Tawny Santabria.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Breaking Up with Our BS. See you, everybody.
How you all feel tonight?
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I'm leaving.
I don't think he felt anything after the crash.
Usa Genjanillo.
I'm in my groove.
Here we go.
Bring a friend. I need it up front.